welcome to Channel 121 News. I'm your host, Maeve Powell. Today we'll be discussing the huge controversy over the novel Lab 257, the disturbing story of the government's secret Plum Island Germ laboratory. The novel takes us on the quest of Long Island native and lawyer Michael Christopher Carroll and his shocking journey inside the notorious Plum Island Biological Research Facility, the secretive government research site that sits just off the coast of New York's prime real estate area. Is a research site that has had its share of meltdowns, mishaps, and downright scary security breaches, including 2 known releases of viruses into the air. Owned by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Plum Island lies just off the coast of the North Fork of Long Island. This otherwise uninhabited, woodsy island has had a long history of controversy, secrecy, and just may have put the millions of residents of the tri-state area in utter danger to exposure to fatal animal diseases including Rift Valley fever, West Nile virus, and even anthrax time and time again. The history of this mysterious island is exposed, from its roots as an animal disease facility to its transformation into a biowarfare research facility, as well as its rise as a top research lab to its fall as a run-down, dangerous place with extremely poor security, even after the events of 9/11 put the island under the watch of the Department of Homeland Security. There are interviews in the novel from the people who made Plum Island what it is, the scientists, researchers, workers, animal handlers, USDA reps, and even citizens from the surrounding area who never wanted the research facility put there in the first place. We see the many breaches of security and protection that often threaten to release viruses of potentially devastating force into the surrounding area. These viruses often caused many of the workers on the island to become ill with diseases that their own personal doctors could not identify. The book is filled with evidence of cover-ups of horrendous proportions, including suggestions that the West Nile virus and other such diseases were actually introduced to U.S. soil via Plum Island. The book even shows mishaps on the island that could have potentially put anthrax, mad cow, and Rift Valley fever viruses into the hands of terrorists who could have easily accessed the island during its many administrative shakedowns. This book proves that we as a nation have just as much to do with releasing deadly toxins and viruses, either by accident or human error, as any foreign terrorist. The workers of Plum Island tell of breaches in security, carelessness, greed, and even subtle sabotage that put millions of Americans at risk. Plum Island was and remains a death trap, struggling to regain the glory it held for a short time as top research lab. And now to talk about the feasibility of the novel is renowned microbiologist Kelsey Allen, who joins us from her remote research lab in Antarctica.
Hello, and thank you for having me. After all that you've been hearing about Plum Island and the disease laboratory, you might be wondering if this is all true or even possible. And I'm here to tell you, yes, it is absolutely possible. Let's start with the Lyme outbreak. As many of you know, Lyme disease is carried by ticks, specifically deer ticks. At this point, you're probably wondering how a little deer tick could cross 2 miles of ocean and reach the mainland from Plum Island. While that does seem impossible, it is possible for a deer to easily swim that distance. So, if a tick carrying Lyme were attached to a deer that swam from Plum Island, all the tick had to do is detach from the deer and find another suitable host, thus infecting the new host with Lyme disease. Now let's think about West Nile virus. This virus is given to humans when they are bitten by an infected mosquito, but the mosquito gets it from biting an infected bird. So there are 2 possible ways Plum Island could have caused this outbreak. Firstly, they may have been experimenting with infected birds that were not properly contained. If the bird escaped, it could have flown to the mainland where it was bitten by a mosquito. That mosquito is now capable of spreading West Nile virus to humans. Secondly, they may have been experimenting on infected mosquitoes that escaped and were blown to the mainland, where they began infecting people. Finally, let's look at the outbreak of Dutch duck plague. This disease can be spread through contaminated water or direct contact with an infected individual. Again, there are 2 ways Plum Island could be connected to this outbreak. If they did not properly dispose of specimens after experimenting, wild birds could have come into contact with the infected specimens, then spread it to the mainland. Or the specimens could have contaminated the water supply, which a wild bird drank, contracted Dutch duck plague, and brought to the mainland. Although Plum Island still denies ever experimenting with these diseases, it is the only possible source for these outbreaks.
Thank you, Kelsey. That was very insightful. And now for a second opinion from microbiologist Whitney O'Brien.
Hi, Kelsey. These are very interesting findings about how these diseases could have been transmitted. So you went on to cover Lyme disease, the West Nile virus, and the Dutch duck plague. So first you discussed the Lyme disease outbreak and how it spreads, which is mainly by deer ticks. And then you went on to cover the West Nile virus, and that it's transmitted by mosquitoes, and the mosquito can get it from biting into an infected bird. So it is surprising to an extent, but if you know their history, it doesn't really surprise you given the safety regulation standards it was held to. So last you looked at the Dutch duck plague, and you said that it can be spread through contaminated water or direct contact with an infected person. You state there are two ways Plum Island could be connected to this outbreak. So if they did not properly dispose of the specimens after experimenting with the wild birds could have met the infected specimen. Or the second possibility is that the specimens could have contaminated the water supply when a wild bird drank it and then brought it to the mainland, transmitting the Dutch duck plague that way. So we have investigated the safety of Plum Island, and that is that given its location, it's definitely only 2 miles from Long Island, New York, and Old Lyme, Connecticut, 85 miles from Manhattan. And we again investigated the safety of this facility. So it's definitely a very spotty history, and so we looked at other interviews, other labs like Lab 257, and we fear that the reason behind this was one of the primary targets for them investigating this was for terrorist nations to infect the livestock, which caused fear and panic. So that is reasonable considering the infectious nature. Since World War II, our government has actually been researching the bacteria and the viruses used to accomplish this goal of fear and panic. And Lab 201 and Lab 257 were established by two men, William Hagen, a dean at Cornell University Veterinary School, developed by the first grade weapons like anthraxis, or otherwise known as Strain 99. So Erika Traub was a Nazi germ warfare expert who worked for Heinrich Himmler, who was allegedly smuggled into the U.S. in 1949 to work for the CIA, the Army, and the USDA. Actually, as investigators uncovered, it was overseen by the Department of Homeland Security. So Plum Island originally stated its purpose was to study the animal diseases that could threaten people and design vaccinations against them. However, the real reason and purpose of Plum Island was to study animal diseases that would threaten our livestock with the goal of weaponizing them for use against the livestock in other countries. But we would protect our own livestock from such attacks. As I stated earlier, Plum Island has had a sketchy past. In looking into its beginning and exploring the inconsistency and unsafe practices, the constant switching of ownership, going from U.S. Army's jurisdiction, the USDA, and then to the Department of Homeland Security, definitely the most unsettling was that it was sold to the lowest bidder. It really comes into fruition regarding the lack of research, the declining safety regulations, and the standards they hold themselves to, or the lack of. So definitely Plum Island has revealed the truth of how unsafe it was, and most shockingly for me was the lack of protection its workers were given, and it was denied diagnostic assistance by their employers. Kelsey, given your findings about how it was transmitted, and then the potential causes about how the diseases were transmitted is definitely true, and given the safety regulations, it definitely should be stricter in other labs because of how risky working with these specimens are. So this kind of makes me question how safe are other biohazard labs like Plum Island? What are their safety standards like? What are labs doing to protect the public? Are there any other labs like Plum Island continuing to practice like this? Why was the interviewer denied access to Plum Island? And how safe really are we? How will we avoid outbreaks like these again? And how are we going to uphold strict safety regulations? Thank you for your response. And
thank you, Whitney, for that insight. And that's all we have today on Channel 121 News. See you next time.
Hi, Kelsey. These are very interesting findings about how the diseases could have been transmitted.
Hello, and welcome to Channel 121 News. Today I'm your anchor. Oh, Maddie, don't look at me.
Sorry, I didn't know what you were doing. Okay, I'm sorry.